What's going on, y'all? It's LJ. And so as the year draws to a close, and I latch on to some much needed downtime, it's time to round up the additions to the collection this year that I've not only spun the most, but have been happier than a tornado in a trailer park to add to the collection. These are all albums that just get better with every spin, and not one has wandered more than a few feet from the turntable since it showed up. Now, with so many amazing new releases, trades, pickups, and selfless gifts from fellow YouTubers like Bruno Enderly, Ryan Rocks 84, Greeno 22, Scott Water, SMF Captain Howdy, Punk Texas, The Metal Theologian, Frederick Svensson, Panix 1960, EJD 715, Old Vinyl Dude, Axel Book, Josh Owens, Maria H, Zep Pearl, EL Peter, James Dashner, and more, and check all those channels out. Narrowing this list is a Herculean task, and it could easily have tripled or more in size. But, like the bed in the morning, it has to be made. And so in no particular order, let's rock this year's list. First on the list, from Sweden, new wave of traditional heavy metal Madman Trials' second album, Vessel, joined the collection immediately when it was released in January of this year. It's an amazing album that I've spun heavily, but it was the 2011 debut, the Primordial Temple, that was limited to only 500 copies and was a nightmare to track down at all, let alone for a reasonable price. Home at last, this would sit right at home in any mid-80s metal blade fueled AA battery slaying Walkman, taking direction from the best classic US power metal and adding in occult undertone. It's made up of all things early Fate's Warning with John Arch, mid-period Iron Maiden, and all streaked with shades of Mercyful Fate and early King Diamond. One of my absolute favorite new wave of traditional heavy metal bands, Skullfist. The 2011 debut full-length head of the pack from this Toronto band, with a pre-action Alice in Thunderland continuing on drums from 2010's Heavier Than Metal EP, and with Johnny Nesta replacing Sir Shred on guitar, the band tapped into this massive wave of frenetic 80s metal energy and released this debut that should have come with a neck brace. Killer tracks that would earn praise from the most hardcore 80s metal fan and Titans, those bands from that era. High-pitched vocals, shout-along choruses, insane shredding, and harder to find on vinyl than a trapdoor on a canoe. And with a new album due out in January, in this music room, Skullfist is royalty. No false metal. Next on the list, Goathorn's second full-length release from 2003. Fellow Toronto new wave of traditional heavy metal band and future Cauldron frontman Jason Decay's band. Finally released on vinyl after 10 agonizing years, being a difficult to find self-release CD only, and a massive improvement over 2001's debut, Voyage to Nowhere, which is also a really good record. This is just cleaner, but it still has those raw vocals, Jason Decay's more raw side, much less cleaner and melodic than is today in Cauldron, and with an increased focus on melody, with tight, catchy tracks, make this one an absolute constant spin. Every other day, this album finds its way onto the turntable. It's near perfect from start to finish, and try as they may to have created another dirty, Canadian, beer-soaked underground metal album. In hindsight, it was just too damn obvious that J Decay was hell-bent on achieving bigger and better things, and he damn sure did with Cauldron just a few short years later. 9 years. 9 years, y'all. Who says you can't go home? 9 years after Don't Break the Oath, the split of Denmark's greatest band, one of the most amazing solo careers in metal history, and completely unexpected by everyone, Mercyful Fate came stomping back with In the Shadows. Available for years on vinyl, only in Europe, in really pricey import. This Back on Black reissue sounds insane. insane, and was and is well worth tracking down. Not quite as savage as the first two Fate albums, Melissa and Don't Break the Oath, but easily on par with any of King Diamond's solo run after they split. And this followed just 2 to 3 years after King Diamond's own The Eye. Tracks like Egypt and Is That You, Melissa, with its harpsichord intro, blew us all away at the time. And to this day, from its eerie cover to the insane musicianship, is an amazing listen. Next on the list, we all know the Chilean metal scene is huge. Yeah, alright, it's really not. But for this band, Axe Battler, this is their debut, and it's straight out of Chile. Now, Axe Battler, who are they? I had never heard of them. But thankfully, it's something that I shot the dice on because it is an amazing album. Dramatic vocals, and thankfully, not in an operatic Nightwish kind of way, but with inspiration drawn from Iron Maiden's Power Slave. Those are the first things that jumped to mind and jumped off the turntable the first time I spun this. As it rolled on, and as it has many times over since, the flow, the guitars, the vocals, the songs, all perfectly fit together to create a record that is indeed similar to and would find a home in anyone's ears that's a fan of that period of Iron Maiden. From the cover to the songs, I freaking love this album, and I cannot wait for the follow-up. Now, if you're still not convinced that Sweden has simply tainted its new wave of traditional heavy metal greatness water supply, let's talk about Enforcer. Now, from the 2000 debut Into the Night, moving on into the sophomore album Diamonds, the follow-up Death by Fire, and now landing in the latest release, Enforcer made it obvious they were out for blood, and they have aced it with every single release starting with the debut. And save for Skullfist and Cauldron, no other new wave of traditional heavy metal band has reminded me more of the raw energy or the quality that bands like Metallica had in the early 80s. You remember the first time you heard Kill 'Em All? Or even when you listen to it today and then you bump it up against some smoking piece of garbage like Saint Anger or Lulu, and you just compare the two, right? There's no comparison there. And that is the energy, the ambition, the determination that Enforcer puts out on every single release. They make it obvious you're gonna have your ass handed to you for the next 45 minutes. Now, Below the Slumber is the closest that you'll get to a ballad on this album, and even it kicks you in the teeth. Listen to this while driving and prepare for speeding tickets. Strap in, y'all. Alright, so the scene in Chile may not be so huge, although it is quality, but the scene in Spain certainly is. And here's another band that we can't not talk about, and it's Iron Curtain. And actually, both of these albums were not only insanely difficult to track down, but both joined the collection this year, starting with the debut, Road to Hell. But another insanely difficult to find and long out of print slab of manic and new wave of traditional heavy metal energy. Now, it's thanks only to fellow YouTuber and Spain native Holzpa Metal and his channel, which you should check out, helping me to dig up a copy directly from the band, no less, of Iron Curtain's Jaguar Spirit. A Motorhead-esque assault from the debut continues, but there is a tinge more melody here, but it's no less relentless. Now here we have leads from Danny, who is not only a very cool cat to chat with, super personable guy, but he also melts the fretboard in another one of Spain's best new metal bands, Hittin', another band you should definitely check out. With a new EP coming out this month and a new album from both Iron Curtain and Hittin' right around the corner, 2016 is bound to be a very proud year for Spain's metal scene. Is that a cover or what? That is a cover. That's why vinyl. You even imagine this on an iPhone, on an iPod? No, this is not device-friendly music. Sorry, y'all. Vinyl, Tokyo Blade, Genghis Khan, real, raw, dirty new wave of British heavy metal from the band that began as Killer, became Genghis Khan, and then finally Tokyo Blade. And that's a band I'm sure all are familiar with, and if not, check them out. But it's this kind of new wave of British heavy metal that it's easy to imagine hearing at places like Ruskin Arms, alongside then unknown bands like Iron Maiden, And it's thanks to labels like High Roller Records that are dedicated to unearthing these obscure demos on cassette, these EPs, photos, stories, and then pouring the time and energy into releasing them all as limited edition collector's dream come true. Just like this release. High quality and sounding as pristine as they will ever hope to. The absolute final word in early Tokyo Blade history, and absolutely no one delivers like High Roller Records. Another vote for Sweden. Here's album number 2 from Black Trip. Black Trip has Enforcer's guitarist on vocals and their drummer pounding the kit like a redheaded stepchild. Wabba! Wabba! After the first album in 2013, I had Devil Horn crossed that it would not just be a one-off side project. And thankfully, regardless of where they find the time to pull it off, the band continued and released a second insanely good album. This time around, there is less of a new wave of British heavy metal feeling and more of a straight-up Thin Lizzy vibe. And while I definitely dig the debut more, the sophomore album has some of the best straight-ahead, 70s fueled, rocking tracks, guitar harmonies, and vocals that I've heard in a long time. Pop it in, fire up the muscle car, and head down the road. Of course it's on the list. Shocked?
Too long, too challenging, 3 LPs is too many. The last song's really long.
Yeah, I've heard all this, and I've heard it described that way. Here's my spin. Back to the jazz bins with you, y'all. It's metal. It's Maiden. It's Maiden by numbers, and any real fan that claims that isn't exactly what they'd want is fuller of shit in a chicken coop. The band is on fire. Deny that. The album rips and delivers on every possible level. Deny that. From the straight-ahead Maiden of the lead-off single Speed of Light, to the triple guitar shredding that would put most new bands to shame on tracks like The Red and the Black, to the adventurous and epic closer, Empire of the Clouds. Anyone that claims to hate this album is about as useful as a back pocket on a t-shirt. Killer release. Next up and last on this year's list, recently released and recently arrived as a very, very generous gift from Saxon's #1 fan and fellow YouTuber Punk Texas, the new release from Saxon, Battering Ram. Saxon is smart enough, after 35 plus years, to pack a powder charge capable of leveling a building as the very first track. Album number 21 from Saxon clearly was not recorded to fulfill anyone's contract. Cannonball that first track with track 2, The Devil's Footprint, which starts with a spoken interlude of demonic lore, and you've got an obvious parallel and a tip of the horns to Metal Brothers in Arms, Iron Maiden, who've been around just about as long, and the two are very often compared. Either way, we got new amazing albums from both bands this year. Who can ask for more? This is equal parts European power metal and pure good old-fashioned riff-driven mayhem. Battering Ram is a dark, well-produced album that reminds me immediately of 1984's excellent album Crusader, and it sounds absolutely wild jumping out of the speakers. A fantastic album. And that's it, y'all. That's this year's list. We need go no further because we'll simply be here all night. Agree or disagree with my choices? Use the comments below. Let me know what your thoughts are. Step up to the plate. Think I missed something that should have been included? With a year as great as this one was, I'm damn sure I did. But a list has to be made. And now, sincere thanks to all for another year of support, comments, and just pure good old-fashioned geeking out over records new and old. Happy holidays, y'all. Stay safe, stay warm, and be good to each other. Later. And that's it, y'all. That's this year's list. We